The following program does not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Reality Radio 101, its advertisers and sponsors, or its listening audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Bear Psychology Radio Show with psychologist, author, and speaker, Dr. Anna Baranowski, where mind, mood, and what matters to you are discussed. We're broadcasting live from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, on Reality Radio 101. So get ready to email or post a message to us. We are looking forward to speaking with you or responding to your questions. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, right to your host of the Bear Psychology Radio Show, Dr. Anna Baranowski.
If you're celebrating the holidays, Christmas or Hanukkah or some other festival of lights, that you've been having a very gentle time. My name is Dr. Anna Baranowski, and I'm really delighted to be with you here today, bearing witness to evolving mind, mood, health. I found that the most profound changes occur when a person truly feels heard and understood, and I'd like to think of it as deeply bearing witness to life evolving. We can feel incredibly stuck when we live with our fears, stressors, and troubles alone. And when we share, we dialogue, and feel supported, it provides a powerful foundation for us to move forward in understanding and care. Isn't it time for your evolution? Today's topic is one that I think is really worth spending some time thinking about, especially given the precise moment in time as we're bearing down into the new year, coming up very shortly. So with this time of the year, a lot of people start thinking about New Year's resolutions. Well, New Year's resolutions, they're kind of funny, and there's a lot of research actually on why so many New Year's resolutions don't work. And, there are some things that we can do about it. It's not that it's not a good idea to plan for the new year, things that you want to make happen for yourself or your goals for the new year. Those are great things to put in action. However, according to some recent research, about 80% of New Year's resolutions fail. So it kind of makes you wonder, why would that be? Are we doomed to make goals for ourselves that we can't reach, that we can't meet? And if so, why would that be? Why is it that we have such a hard time setting a goal, following through, making it happen? What are the things that we need to do instead? What could we do to make them last? What could we do to make these goals achievable so that, if we envision something, we can actually see it come to fruition? That's a great thing to be able to know you can do, that you can really rely on yourself, that you can set a goal for yourself and really make it happen. But one of the main reasons that these goals don't work, well, there are a number. One of them is simply that the resolution isn't specific enough. So if I say, I want to lose weight this year, or I want to exercise more, it doesn't hit home. It's not achievable. It's not broken down into really achievable steps. So let's say I want to exercise more. That's an idea I have in my mind, and I want to be able to bring that forward in the new year. But how am I going to know I'm actually achieving my goal? That requires me to really get clear about the steps. So if getting fit is a goal of mine, what do I need to do to break it down? I want to forget completely about getting fit. And I want to say to myself, so I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to find a gym, and I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, and I'm going to spend 30 minutes there or 45 minutes. Whatever it is, I want to be super, super specific about it. What times of the week I'm going to go, how much time I'm going to spend there, what activities I'm going to engage in. I want to be able to track that I'm actually doing the small steps that I need to make the bigger goal possible. Because otherwise it feels impossible. I mean, many of us have had this experience of, waking up in the morning and just going like, yeah, no, whatever I said to myself yesterday, that's not happening. I don't have the energy for it. I don't have the motivation for it. And we have to be able to bypass that as well. We have to be able to tackle all of our negative reasons that we give ourselves, because there's so many of them. If I'm saying to myself, well, tomorrow at 2:00, I'm going to, pull it together and get to the gym. And then, 2:00 comes and it's like, but no, I not really feel like that. Well, to address that, I'm going to actually talk to you about the 5-second rule. And this is set up by Mel Robbins, who wrote a very interesting book that, talks about this 5-second rule and, what it took for her to launch herself after going through, some really, really tough times in life. And Mel Robbins is a pretty inspirational powerhouse. She's written a few books, and, she speaks with incredible passion about, what she sees as the most important ways to get moving forward, but also the reasons why we get stuck in fear and can't get ourselves launched. And, one of the stories she tells is about being able to get herself moving by just basically saying, she's going to be like a rocket launcher, and instead of allowing herself to get engaged in all the reasons why she can't do something, she will propel herself into activity. She'll hear her alarm clock go off or the timer that she set to, achieve a certain task, and instead of, giving herself reasons, she will propel herself into action. It's an interesting notion. I have not tried taking that one on, but when you hear her talk about it, it just makes you feel like you want to get into that, and what a wonderful way to motivate yourself by bypassing all the busyness of our brains, because our brains can really get us into terrible, terrible trouble. So going back to the other reasons why people's resolutions fail is another one is you are not framing them positively enough. So what that really means is when you make a resolution, you don't want to say things like, oh, I want to stop wasting money or eating junk food. You actually want to be able to be very clear about the positive step you will take to make it happen. So, for example, if you say to yourself, well, you want to start, let's say you want to start dating, and one of the things that you've decided is that you're going to be married in 5 years, or whatever it is you say to yourself. And that's the future goal, some big goal that you set for yourself. But, I mean, you got to break it down. Give yourself some tiny bite-sized steps that are really positive, like, once a week I'll attend some kind of social outing. Maybe, I will join a volunteer group, or I will engage in a community activity where I will know that I will meet people I've not met before and, open up my social circle. So that's pretty clear. And again, what's happening is you're setting aside, you've got the bigger goal and you keep that in sight, but you're setting aside the big goal and you're just breaking it down into little achievable steps again that are very positive and hopeful in terms of the potential outcome. And, the other issue, often what we do is we make goals that are really more inspired by what the people in our lives want, rather than what we truly deeply want. So unless this goal is really for me, it's hard to be consistent with it. Maybe you've got somebody in your life who has a notion that, you ought to move up in your career or, take more, save more money for the future, whatever it is, whatever ideas that, might, come, to the forefront in your conversations with people, you might start thinking, well, I guess that would really make that person happy if I did this. Maybe I should be thinking about it, when really, from a really deep place inside of yourself, that does not land for you. And I want you to really take a moment and ask yourself if you can be true to yourself about what you're really about today, who you really are. And, what that really makes me think about is what is success. Because success is not something that somebody else tells you is good. It's this place within inside of yourself where you can lean towards a kind of an inner truth. And, that can look very unique depending on who you are and what life really means for you. I would never want to, have somebody follow my idea of what success is or what, a good goal might be, because it doesn't have a deep sense of truth for you. It's hard to really follow through with things that don't feel deeply true for you. So, think about, what success is. And, what is success for you? So if you have an idea of what success is for you, or if this is a topic that's of interest to you, or you have an experience that you want to share, please email us and join the conversation in studio101@gmail.com. We'd be happy to include you in this conversation. And that's always a nice thing for us to really kind of engage in this dialogue around your experience. I want to hear that. So we've got an email from Carla. Thank you so much, Carla, for sending this in. Hi, Dr. Anna. I can attest to the 80% failure of New Year's resolutions. Yes, I know. I can too, actually. I can attest to the 80% failure of New Year's resolutions. I have never been able to fulfill my New Year's resolutions for one reason or another. Thank you for the advice today. Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to you as well, Carla. So let's go back to this idea of success, because, I want to really maybe kind of massage this idea for a moment and think about, well, is success about being happy? Is it an idea that you have that somebody else has planted in your mind? Do you have notions about what success would look like for you? What would happen if you actually defined success? What does it really mean? Is it financial? Is it relationship? Is it what happens in your career? Is it successful health? Like, what do you think would really give you that sense that you've been successful in your life? I started to do some contemplation on it. Sometimes when I prepare for this radio show, it's really helpful because it gets me to start thinking about, what things mean to me. And one of the things that I really recognize in my life, moments when I feel truly and deeply satisfied, that to me is about my own success and satisfaction. I know for myself that I usually throw a number of different, gatherings and, parties for people in my life. And one of the things that I know for myself is that it's a lot of work, for sure. And sometimes I wonder why I do it. But there's this feeling that I have when a number of people from different circles within my life come together and enjoy a meal or a conversation or some kind of event that is meaningful. And there's some deep, deep sense of satisfaction that I have. That feels like success to me. This bringing of people together to share, to dialogue, to connect. And, that to me is, so powerful that I have to say, when I set up the goal for myself, and, since we're talking about setting up successful goals today, when I set up the goal to, make one of these gatherings, it's that feeling of people coming together. So, it's not about, losing weight or, creating a bigger career or any of those things. It's just the feeling of being connected and the warmth of human community around me. That feels better than anything. So that to me is success. And, I wonder if you could just take a moment and just honestly ask yourself, what is success? I mean, success comes in a lot of different packages, and, life is complex. So make sure that you recognize that, there are different layers and levels in your life that has to be addressed. I'm not telling everybody to go out and make parties. I'm suggesting that you define your own success. Is it community and connection? Is it creative outlets? Is it your career? Do you need to save for the future? Are you in the process of getting married? Do you want to, work on having a healthy relationship? Do you need to spend more time quiet? Do you need more nature? Do you need creative outlets? Are you writing a book? Like, what is it you're doing that you want to focus on that's really important to you, that is meaningful? Because it certainly is, it's a complex thing, and we need to really understand that everybody has a different experience of that. I want to share with you a very short clip. You will listen to Viktor Frankl. This man was a Holocaust survivor, and he wrote a book called Logotherapy, and he became a therapist, a mental health clinician, a practitioner, after he'd experienced these horrific things in life. He'd written a very, very, what became a very famous, a very popular book called Man's Search for Meaning. And he spoke nationally and internationally. And, one of the things he talked about is the awakening of human potentialities. And in this tiny little clip that is from 1972, he talks about research at the time of, what were drivers of, success. What did people want to achieve? And he recognized that about 17% in the research that he was quoting, people wanted to make money. They wanted to make a lot of money. But then in the next part of the video, he talks about the other drivers of life. And so I want you to listen to this piece because it's just so real, it's so profound, and it's so true for most of us.
They wish to make a lot of money. In Europe, every American student, even more every American adult, is regarded as someone who is just out to make a lot of money. Really, 16% of these students regarded their main goal and concern in life to make a lot of money. I'm quoting literally, make a lot of money. And you know what the top class, the top category, we say category, what do you say? Category was among, excuse me, but I know I am speaking a marvelous accent without the slightest English. Now, you know what the top category was? 78% of these American youngsters were concerned, as they expressed it themselves, with finding a meaning and purpose in their lives. So this is a realistic view on man. And you know, you won't believe it, gray hair of my age, I started taking flying lessons recently. Do you know what my flying instructor told me? If you are starting here, wish to get here, say east, heading for this, and you have a crosswind, you will drift and you will land here. So you have to do what we pilots call crabbing, he told me, C-R-A-B, crabbing. You have to head for north of this airfield, and you have to fly that way, you see, as if you headed in this direction. If you are heading here above this airfield, then you will actually land here. But if you head for here, you are landing here. This holds also for man, I would say. If we take man as he really is, we make him worse. But if we overestimate him, it's premature, your applause, you will soon know why. If we seem to be idealists and are overrating man, and looking at him that high, here above, you know what happens? We promote him to what he really can be. So we have to be idealists in a way, because then we wind up as the real realists. And you know who has said this? If we take man as he is, we make him worse. But if we take man as he should be, we make him capable of becoming what he can be. This was not my flight instructor, this was not me, this was Goethe. He said this verbally.
So it's very interesting how he captures this idea of our worth as human beings, what we could potentially achieve. You know, what Viktor Frankl is really saying is that we have to project ourselves as being better, as being greater, grander, having even more potential, and shooting as high as we possibly can in order for us to land where we can land. And I just love this. I love the idea that, you know, we can achieve more by just allowing our minds to see us as bigger, as having greater potential. And what a beautiful thing that is. So I want to give you a couple of things that might give us some ways of challenging that or understanding how to get there. So one of the things to be aware of is, you know, there are little tricks to understanding how to achieve success. So one of them is recognizing that we may have an internal locus of control or an external locus of control. And your internal locus of control, when you have an internal locus of control, it means that you believe that the events in your life are caused by your own choices and are completely within your own control. Now, if we believe that life is completely outside of our control, we have absolutely no control, and that, you know, life just keeps on happening to us, and, you know, there's nothing that we can do. You know, it's interesting because the reality is that most of us have experienced times where things happen and they weren't in our control. And, you know, the thing that becomes in our control is how we're gonna face that thing, you know, and, you know, that in itself can be an incredible gift of strength. You know, when we have an internal locus of control, it's what's called a growth mindset, and you know, this growth mindset allows us to recognize that we're capable of learning what we need to learn, and setting our minds to achieving what we want to or need to achieve. And it's a very powerful thing to do, because no matter what our situation is, if we have this internal locus of control, like, I can face this situation, or I can make the best of this day, or I can learn how to take the next step that might help me deal with this very difficult situation. Let's say you are in a difficult situation and you have to think beyond, some grand notion of what you might be able to achieve, and more about how can you live right now, just today, with what you're facing in this moment right now. I want to talk about a very interesting person. I want to talk about a woman who is living under a bridge, and yet somehow she was able to stay positive. Now, it's pretty remarkable. What does that actually take, being able to stay positive? Well, this individual, Mark Horvath, is the founder of a nonprofit called Invisible People TV. So he goes around all over the place, and he captures videos of individuals who are homeless. And some of them are homeless because, they had a bad time with their health, or they lost a job, or their car broke down, and they just didn't have the funds to stay in their home. Like, life has not been kind. They didn't have a safety net. And there are people who are good people who have just not had the safety net that some of us do have. And so Mark works by, creating connections with various organizations like Hanes, who provides socks, and, various communities to help these individuals who are out on the street struggling. And Mark has his own story. He was, struggling in his own life. He had been doing well at one time, and then he lost his job. And after an extended period of unemployment and losing his house to, a foreclosure, he decided that he was going to use social media to help people who were experiencing homelessness. And he knew, because he had found himself homeless as a result of some, unfortunate setbacks. So, he is out there talking to people, and I want to give you a little clip of this beautiful woman who was living under a bridge in Seattle. And, this is also an issue in Canada as well. But let's listen to Mark and this woman have a conversation.
Amanda.
Yes.
You're homeless here in Seattle.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Seattle's beautiful. What do you want to know?
How do you survive out here? You're living under a bridge.
I try to remember that for as many negatives there are, that there must be that many positives. And so I keep looking at the positives, and I keep trying to remember that there are beautiful colors, and that I'm saving my life, and that's what matters. And it doesn't matter where I live, and it doesn't matter any of it, just as long that I'm alive, and that I'm making a difference in this world, because no one's going to stop that. I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to save my life and hopefully do good in the lives of others.
So this is such an incredible example of a man who is living his passion, because, from what I'm reading about Mark, he seems to be really living his passion, taking action and educating people about, just slipping through the cracks and things not working out. And then there's this woman who, you know, is just trying to live her life and finding herself, you know, due to unfortunate circumstances of her own, living under a bridge. So I'm going to get back to her shortly, but let's talk about some of the emails that we're getting. This is... okay, so we've got a response from Carla. So, wow, what a topic. The perfect time of the year for this. Resolutions will never work unless they are taken in baby steps. Absolutely. That is the only way that they work. I have had success with my resolutions only on a smaller scale. Do not aim for big, large life changes. Slow and steady is what works. Thanks for the show today. Well, thank you very much, Carla. I want to talk about goals, too. One of the things that I have been passionate about is giving back to the community in Toronto, where I'm located. And, you know, the way in which I feel I've been able to do that has been creating the charity Trauma Practice for Healthy Communities. And one of the things that we have going on with Trauma Practice for Healthy Communities is a fundraiser that we're going to be launching in January. And I'm really glad about this because, you know, this was one of those little baby step things because it's taken a long time for us to get to a place where we can launch something really innovative. And one of the things that we're doing is we have created a pop-up choir. And the pop-up choir is really about, you know, healing voices, people coming together and sharing in music, a night of music where we sing together and we use our voices to share an evening. And if people are interested in, you know, joining in or, you know, donating to the event, of course, you can do that. You can just go to you can go to traumapractice.org. And you can find us online at traumapractice.org. Or you can, if you happen to be in the Toronto area or in Ontario somewhere, or you just want to come in and actually join us for the pop-up choir, which is going to be in the evening on January 28th. It's a Tuesday at John Mackenzie House. You can find it on Eventbrite. And look under Trauma Practice Healing Voices, Pop-Up Choir. And the fundraiser is really going to be a lovely evening that will allow you to join in with us, meet some of the crew that we have here, some of the clinicians who are so involved in doing our group-based programs, and other individuals who are helping at the Trauma Practice in various ways. So if you go to Trauma Practice Healing-Voices, so it's traumapractice.org /healing-voices, you'd be able to get a ticket for the pop-up. Or if you're not going to be here and you want to just donate, you'll see on that same website a link for ways to give. And, of course, we're always happy if you feel that you want to make a donation to support this cause as well. That would be wonderful. Okay, thank you so much. So let's hear from Lisa. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing today? So thank you so much for responding to our radio show today. Lisa is saying, I wanted to share a really sweet tradition I started with my kids when they were little. Oh, good. On New Year's Eve, we would each fill out a questionnaire I had compiled, asking them to fill in what they wanted to achieve and learn in the following year and what they are proud of achieving in the year that had gone by. Oh, this is so beautiful. Then we would open and share the sealed envelopes from the past year. Oh, that is so creative and so lovely. So I'm going to repeat that again just in case people want to try this. So, and I also love that this is one of these bringing people together. It's a sweet tradition. It means something to you, and I think that's the biggest thing, is that this rings true. It resonates for you, and it has deep value for you. So Lisa says there's lots of laughter, but lots of learning too. Thanks and Happy New Year, and Happy New Year back to you. I'm going to repeat this little strategy from Lisa in case people didn't catch it. So this is the tradition that she uses with her kids since they were little. On New Year's Eve, everyone fills out a questionnaire asking them to fill in what they've achieved and learned in the following year and what they are proud of achieving in the year that had gone by. Oh, boy. Then we open and share the sealed envelopes from the past year. Well, I think that you've got a really nice New Year's tradition. It sounds beautiful, and I hope that it's going to be a very sweet year for you and your family. And thank you so much for sharing that. Sometimes people write in the most interesting things, and I think that's such a nice thing to be able to contemplate. You know, how can we share as a community together? Are there ways that we can help each other to learn and to grow as well? You know, because again, you know, if we're going to talk about, you know, what's meaningful, you know, what is success, and you know what I think about success, that's about bringing people together. So to me, you know, what is it that you need to say that we can all share in? Okay, here's another one. This is again from Carla. So success to me is to be happy on all levels in life, not just about one thing. I would rather be happy with family, my job, my finances, rather than just being successful in one aspect of life, say a job. You can be successful in your job, but miserable in all aspects of your life. A little success in everything in life is better than just to be successful on one focus. Yeah, and I agree, especially when you think about how complicated our lives are, you know, and I want you to also be really open to the idea that you can have really strong success in a lot of areas of your life, that once you start to be very focused on, you know, what is most meaningful for you, a lot of the things that, you know, we value, we start, our energy starts to free up to be able to place it in places that are really meaningful. And so then our lives just start to feel more successful. So that is a really beautiful thing to say. And thank you so much, Carla, for joining us in this conversation. So now let's hear from Joyce. So Joyce says, hello, first-time listener. Thank you for the advice. Excellent. Oh, well, thank you so much, Joyce. Thank you for joining us. And it is really lovely to hear from people who are joining us for the first time. And, you know, for sure, if you have ideas about the things that have worked for you or the successes that you want to achieve or you're struggling to achieve, then let us hear about that too. And now we're going to hear from Karen, who says, success is dependent upon happiness. That's my opinion. If you're happy with everything in your life, you are successful. Why look elsewhere? If you are not happy in all of your life's daily occurrences, then change them, and that will bring success. And so we have something to contemplate. Again, this idea of happiness and success, and what is success to you? I mean, that's really what we need to consider. You know, what are you, you know, what is your meaning in life? You know, what do you believe in? You know, because as you start to get some clarity about what you believe in, you start to connect with different communities or activities that are more meaningful for you. And for sure, that feels like success. And then finally from Laura. Hi, Laura. Just living is a success. The alternative does not give you a chance to be successful. Live life. Wow. So now that's a whole other kind of conversation. What is life? And, you know, what does that really mean when we think about living life? Because I notice that a lot of people can just seem to go through day to day, just getting through the day. Life is very challenging, and it feels like you're just going through a grind. So what would it mean if we were much, much more present in every interaction that we had, in every activity? What would happen if instead of going faster and achieving more, we slowed down and really took every moment as an opportunity to be fully present? Would that be success? Because, you know, it's a really interesting idea, you know, when we think about what success is and, you know, not quickly bypassing what success might be, you know, for any one person, but really slowing things down and really understanding. So I also want to talk to you about something called the confirmation bias. Okay? So let's say, for example, my whole life I have believed that, you can only be happy if you live in downtown Toronto. I don't live in downtown Toronto, but let's say I had this notion. But, I couldn't live in downtown Toronto. Maybe I had a job north of the city or in Markham or somewhere that wouldn't allow me to live right downtown. Or maybe because Toronto's a super expensive city, I couldn't afford it. And so as a result, I tell myself, I am failing, I'm useless, I'll never succeed. What if I have this notion and I use all my reasoning and keep on coming up with the same answer? No, being downtown is the only correct thing. And then I Google, downtown living, and I see all these things that I think are, really great. Oh, they have the best restaurants, or whatever I'm telling myself. That is a confirmation that I should only think in a certain kind of way. So, this can become a very troubling situation. So in the 1960s, Dr. Cathcart Wasson, a cognitive psychologist, he conducted a number of experiments known as the Wasson's Rule Discovery Test, and he demonstrated that people have a tendency to seek information that confirms their existing beliefs. So, unfortunately, this type of bias can prevent us from looking at situations more objectively, and it can also influence our decisions, and we can make and lead to poor, or just incorrect choices for who we really are and what would serve us best. So, he gives an example that people tend to seek positive information during an election season, let's say, that paints their favorite candidate in a positive light. And they'll look for information that demonstrates that the opposing candidates, are not good or can only be seen in a negative way. And, we can get very biased in our beliefs by only remembering narrow set of details or beliefs. And, it can lead us down a path that is very limited or very narrow. And when it comes to, ideas of success or what we might want for ourselves in the future, we may not be seeing an accurate picture of what is best for us. So I'll give you an example of a man who goes to law school. This is motivated largely by his family's notion of what is best for him. And he takes it on because he wants to be a good person, make his parents happy, be proud of him. His parents are new to the country. He feels a need to do what a lot of immigrant children feel they need to do, which is, live up to certain expectations, live a certain life, be successful. They don't feel that they have the safety net that maybe people who have come from families who are third and fourth generation to a country have, and just feels this driving need to do what would make his family happy. However, as he goes to law school, he feels deeply, deeply inside of himself that this does not feel right. And yet, he spent all his energy before he went to law school looking at it and, really finding reasons why he should be there, despite the fact that it never felt like the right thing for him. And now he's really in a quandary because he's not succeeding. He's not interested in his classes, and instead of looking at himself and really reassessing, really asking himself, what is really going on for me right now? Why am I feeling so out of sort with, getting to these classes and the textbooks that I'm looking at? Why does it all seem so off for me? And instead of really, really taking the time to understand that he may just not be where he needs to be, that this is his life and he needs to take some accounting for it. That he was caught in a confirmation bias, that he had to make his parents happy, and this was the only answer. So, sometimes, success, or notions of success can take us terribly off track when we're not paying attention to who we really are and what's really right for us in our lives. So let's say you do come up with something that feels like it is absolutely the correct choice for you, and you want to really start moving forward on it. I want to share with you Mel Robbins on why motivation is garbage. This is her words, and it's a very, very interesting idea.
And what you think is missing is motivation. And that's not true. Because the way that our minds are wired and the fact about human beings is that we are not designed to do things that are uncomfortable or scary or difficult. Our brains are designed to protect us from those things because our brains are trying to keep us alive. And in order to change, in order to build a business, in order to be the best parent, the best spouse, to do all those things that you know you want to do with your life, with your work, with your dreams, you're going to have to do things that are difficult, uncertain, or scary, which sets up this problem for all of us. You're never going to feel like it. Motivation's garbage. You only feel motivated to do the things that are easy, right?
Why do you think that is?
Oh, I know exactly why that is. Because I've studied this so much, because for me, one of the hardest things to figure out was, why is it so hard to do the little things that would improve my life? And what I've come to realize, and what we'll talk a lot about today, is that the way that our minds are designed is our minds are designed to stop you at all costs from doing anything that might hurt you. And the way that this all happens is it all starts with something super subtle that none of us ever catch. And that is with this habit that all of us have that nobody's talking about. We all have a habit of hesitating. We have an idea. You're sitting in a meeting. You have this incredible idea. And instead of just, saying it, you stop and you hesitate. Now, what none of us realize is that when you hesitate, just that moment, that micro moment, that small hesitation, it sends a stress signal to your brain. It wakes your brain up, and your brain all of a sudden goes, oh wait a minute, why is he hesitating? He didn't hesitate when he put on his killer spiky sneakers. He didn't hesitate with the really cool track pants. He didn't hesitate with the NASA t-shirt. Now he's hesitating to talk. Something must be up. So then your brain goes to work to protect you. It has a million different ways to protect you. One of them is called the spotlight effect. It's a known phenomenon where your brain magnifies risk. Why? To pull you away from something that it perceives to be a problem. And so you can truly trace every single problem or complaint in your life to silence and hesitation. Those are decisions. And what I do and what's changed my life is waking up and realizing that motivation's garbage. I'm never going to feel like doing the things that are tough or difficult or uncertain or scary or new. So I need to stop waiting until I feel like it. And number two, I am one decision away from a totally different marriage, a totally different life, a totally different job, a totally different income, a totally different relationship with my kids. Not like one decision, I'm divorcing you in the marriage example, but one decision on, you could be having a conversation with your spouse and you feel your emotions rise up, and within a tiny window, those emotions can take over and can impact how your marriage goes. Or you can learn how to take control of that micro moment and make a decision to act in a way that actually shifts your marriage. Your life comes down to your decisions, and if you change your decisions, you will change everything.
Yeah, I mean, that core concept comes through so powerfully in your book, which is phenomenal, and I would love it if you would take a second to tell people the story of how, and by the way, I wore the NASA shirt because of the
imagery. That why you wore it?
Yeah, of course.
Oh my God, I'm like falling my glasses off. I did not even get that. I was going to ask you why you wore that shirt.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So
you actually do your homework.
Oh, of course, no, absolutely.
Okay, so let me just take you back. So what you're talking about is the 5-second rule, which has become literally my life's work, and it was all a gigantic mistake. I read up on you too and understand how Quest was born out of misery. The 5-second rule And my life now and my 20-year marriage and everything that I'm doing and the companies that I've built and sold and the company I'm building now, it all comes back to a point in my life that completely and utterly blew. I was 41 years old. I was unemployed. My husband had started a restaurant business, which was his dream. This is actually a funny story. When he got laid off from a big job in high tech, and I think he was really relieved. You know how a lot of us wait to quit our jobs and then we get laid off, and we're like, and he said, I'm not going to look for a job. I'm going to go into the restaurant business. And I think I said the most famous lines of our marriage at that point. I looked at him and I said, listen, buddy, inspiration is for strangers. You get your butt back to that job and you pay the mortgage. And again, micro moment where I'm being a jerk instead of being a supportive wife. But that's an example of where when he said he was not going to go get a job, but he was going to start a business, the first thing that was there was fear. And so fear was making the decision for me.
God, I love that you can share that, though. That's so powerful.
Well, so what happened is the first restaurant was a home run. And, of course, what do you do when things are successful? You grow it. You grow it really big. And so they decided to raise some money. And we threw in our home equity line, the kids' college savings. They tried to open a second and a third. And at the same point, a grocery store chain encouraged them to go into wholesale. So it basically got way too big, way too fast. And the wheels started to come off. And they came off so badly that the second restaurant failed, and they held on to it for too long, like a lot of us do. It's another trick our brains play on us called sunk costs. When you throw a ton of time and a ton of money at something, it's really hard to let go of it. And if you haven't done it in business, we all have a relationship in our past, stayed way too long. That was a trick your brain played on you. So by the time that they closed the second restaurant, it was an $800,000 loss. I mean, that meant our entire home equity line gone.
Right.
It meant kids' college. I get just choked up just thinking about how terrifying it was. And so I found myself at the age of 41, like, just feeling like a complete failure. And so did Chris. And to make it worse, not only had we lost all of our savings, but so many friends and family members had invested. And so there was this real tension between the truth of what was happening and what you had to do in public, because it was public business. Shame, failure, embarrassment, and the liens started to hit the house. The phone started to ring, and it was nothing but collection calls. And I just remember feeling this tremendous shame. And at some point, I think we all hit that moment in life where things just are not going how you thought they would go. And what's amazing about those moments is we all respond very differently. So my husband, he would spring out of bed, and he would head right out that door, 6 o'clock in the morning, and he would go meet his partner, and they would go to the bank, and they would dig right in, and they would face their problems head on. And he's also a smart guy. I mean, he did not want to be in the house when yours truly woke up, because I was a raging bitch at that point in our lives. And the reason why is because when you're scared and you're afraid and you're jealous and you're overwhelmed with emotion, it is so much easier to point the finger at other people. That's a decision, by the way.
Sure.
One you may not be aware that you're making, but you're still making it. So what would happen to me is the exact opposite. Is Chris would be gone, the alarm would go off at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would lie there. And I would think about the lien on the house, and I would think about the bankruptcy that we were facing, and I would think about how much we had fought the night before, and I would think about the fact that I was unemployed, and I would hit the snooze button. I mean, why would you get up when your life is like that? Why would you? I mean, I needed confidence. I needed courage. I was so tapped out. And you know, in the scheme of life, hitting the snooze button is not that big of a deal. But here's the thing about life. None of us wake up and say, today is the day I destroy my life. What we do is we kind of check out because it feels overwhelming. Or we check out because we're afraid. Or we check out because we start listening to self-doubt. And then we make these teeny tiny decisions all day long. We don't even realize it. Decision to not get up on time, a decision to not eat the right thing, a decision to snap at your kids, a decision to not speak in a meeting, a decision to not look for a job, a decision to not deal with your finances, a decision to not call your parents, like whatever it is. All day long, these tiny decisions that take you so far off track. And then you wake up like I did, and you look at your life and you think, how the hell did I get here? And more importantly, how do I get back over there? And you have no idea. And so I was so trapped. And I know from your story, you felt the same way. Like you knew that there was more in store for you, but you couldn't figure out how you close the gap. How do you find the power that's in you? How do you discover your greatness? How do you solve these problems? It feels so overwhelming when you can't. I mean, I would go to the grocery store and the items would scan, and I would be sitting there readying my excuse because there was no way that my check card was going to clear.
Wow.
So I got in this struggle with myself that a lot of us find ourselves in, and that is you get trapped in what I call the knowledge-action gap. You know what to do, but you can't seem to make yourself do it, right? I mean, every one of us is one Google search away from a list of instructions that if you follow any of them, it will change your life. But how do you get out of your head and stop thinking about what you need to do and actually do it? And in my case, this stuff was pretty easy. Get up on time, make breakfast for the kids, get them on the bus, start looking for a job. Be nicer to Chris. Don't drink so much. Instead of isolating yourself, pick up the phone and call a friend. Get yourself out into the woods and go for a walk. Start running again. Like all these little things that I was capable of, but I couldn't get out of here. Could not get out of here. And if you're stuck, that's the problem. The problem is you're in your head. You're thinking. That is the universal problem. And it all starts with this knowledge of what to do, and then you hesitate and you think about whether or not you feel like doing it. So for a couple months, I was really stuck. Chris would get up at 6, I'd hit the snooze, and then I'd hit the snooze, and then I'd hit the snooze, the kids would miss the bus. And then every night I'd do the same thing. I'd go in bed. Have you ever had one of those nights? Probably before you started your company, but where you go in bed and you're like, all right, Tom, that's it. Tomorrow, it's the new me. Tomorrow, I'm going to get up on time. I am going to go to the gym. I am going to look for a job. I'm not going to drink so much. It's going to be amazing. The new me, the future me. Woo! Let's do this, right? Then you go to bed, and you wake up 7 hours later, and you're like, I don't feel like the new me. It's the only, that's the stupidest. See, motivation's garbage. It's never there when you need it. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. And so here's what happened to me, and thank you for wearing the NASA t-shirt. It's a really stupid story.
It's a powerful story.
So one night, Chris had gone to bed. I'd been struggling. We still had all the same problems. We still had a lien on the house, still facing bankruptcy, still fighting like crazy. I was still unemployed. They still hadn't figured out like the solution yet for the business. And I was about to turn off the TV, and there on the TV there was this rocket launching, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is it. I am going to launch myself out of bed like a rocket ship, like NASA, right?
So that's the biggest story with Mel Robbins. I wanted to wait so that you got the full impact of her storyline. She experienced a huge setback in life, and then she had this profound epiphany that she could not let her fear or the chatter in her brain make decisions about what was going to happen today. She had to find a way, and she used this trick called the 5-second rule to launch herself every single day. And, you know, think about it. The story she told started 10 years ago. She's 51 now, and she is this powerhouse. She has completely transformed her life. Her talk, the 5-second rule, has been viewed more than 20 million times on YouTube since August 2019. So I will encourage you to watch that video. I will encourage you to find things that are truly meaningful for you. I want to encourage you to follow your inner truth. Start to recognize there are so many ways to get engaged in what we might call designing your life. There's a few videos by a fellow named Alexander Heine. He's the author of Master the Day, and he writes about designing your life, creating a vision, creating the habits that knock those visions into place, and following through. There's lots of videos on the habits of successful people, creating a growth mindset. There's some really nice videos by Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks a lot about habit as well. And I want to talk a little bit before we finish today about the powerful work of Anais Nin, who focused a lot. She's no longer alive. She died in the 70s, but she wrote profoundly about growth. And I want to end today with an Anais Nin personal growth quote. It takes courage to push yourself to places you have never been before, to test your limits, to break through barriers. And the day came when the risk it took to stay tight inside the bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope your New Year's are wonderful. Find your truth. Wishing you a gentle day and 2020.
Thank you for listening to the Bear Psychology Radio Show with psychologist, author, and speaker, Dr. Anna Baranowski, right here on Reality Radio 101.